Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And yes, it is a meditation day, so grab your coffee, grab your water, grab your tea, grab whatever. We're going to sit down here and we're going to read this meditation. I haven't read this one today. This is from the Language of Letting Go. I started looking through it and then I was like, I think I'm going to read this on camera today. This is a really, really good meditation. And I like the message. So I haven't read the whole thing. I just started reading the beginning of it. I actually read the very end of it. And so I didn't read the pulp, the middle of it. So let's get into this meditation. October 11th, recovery. How easy it is to blame our problems on others. Look at what he's doing. Look how long I've waited. Why doesn't she call? If only he'd change, then I'd be happy. Often, our accusations are justified. We probably are feeling hurt and frustrated. In those moments, we may begin to believe that the solution to our pain and frustration is getting the other person to do what we want or having the outcome we desire. But these self-defeating illusions put the power and control of our life in other people's hands. We call this codependency. The solution to our pain and frustration, however valid, is to acknowledge our own feelings. We feel the anger or the grief, then we let go of the feelings and find peace within ourselves. We know our happiness isn't controlled by another person, even though we may have convinced ourselves it is. We call this acceptance. Then we decide that although we'd like our situation to be different, maybe our life is happening this way for a reason. Maybe there is a higher purpose and plan in play, one that's better than we could have orchestrated. We call this faith. Then we decide what we need to do, what is within our power to do to take care of ourselves. That's called recovery. It's easy to point our finger at another, but it's more rewarding to gently point it at ourselves. Today, I will live with my pain and frustration by dealing with my own feelings. And I think this is such a great meditation. And, I think for me in life, I am a believer that things happen for reasons. And when I say that, people are always like, oh, every little thing that happens for a reason. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that everything that happens in life happens for a reason. But I do think, and a lot of people that don't have any belief in a higher power are often very confused what I mean by that. And so I've talked about this on my vlog and I want to explain it on here because I think for anybody in life looking for some meaning, it's like people will say, well, what if there's nothing when it's all over? And then, like there is no God and there is no higher power or whatever, then there was no meaning to the things that you applied meaning to in your life. So when things happen in my life, like bigger picture things, not just, me walking down the street or turning left at a stop sign or whatever, but when bigger picture things happen in my life that I have some emotional response to, and I'm like, okay, like I'm either joyous or I'm sad about it or whatever, I look at it and I try to and not at the moment, right? Like not at the moment. That's really hard for me. But, it's like in the moment, what I try to do is look up and say thank you, like Maya Angelou said, and because, when you're going through a really difficult time in your life, there's probably a very valuable lesson right around the corner. So when I'm going through a difficult time in my life, what I really try to do is I try to look, as the days follow, at the whole situation and go, okay, what can I learn from this situation? What was my part in this situation? What can I own? What did I do? And what do I have control over today? And many times, the only amount of control that I have over something is my reaction or my response to it, like I've talked about, In a vlog a while ago, I was talking about driving, you guys know I love analogies. It's like driving down the street and I have control over what I'm doing in my lane, but I don't have a lot of control over the other cars around me. Now I can be careful and I can watch out for them and I can see what they're doing, but if one of those cars, swerves over into my lane, I have absolutely no control over that. There's nothing that I can do about that, right? So I have to take care of my car best, what I'm doing, and, and hope for the best. And that's what I try to do in life, and I'm not always great at it. Sometimes I get off track of that, and sometimes, I have to realign myself, and I think often that those lessons are there for me to realign myself. But like I was saying, when people say that to me, well, what if you get to the end of your life and, you die and there's nothing? Then there were no real lessons to life, and there was no meaning to the things that happened to you and all that. And I'm like, okay, well, if that is the case, Boo Radley is down here crying. He wants to be up in the video. Come here, Boo. He's going to cry until I put him up here. So you want to say hello to everybody? He says, hello, everybody. We've been outside all day today, running around. We've had such a good day. He'll stay up here for 2 seconds and then hop over to the ottoman over there. So anyway, but if I get to the end of my life and there is something, and I've applied meaning to it, and I've learned from the things that have happened in my life, then I'm just better off for it, right? Because then there was something there. If I get to the end of my life and there isn't anything at the end of it, and I'm not probably going to know that anyway, right? Like, it's not like if there's nothing, there's just, blackness forever and ever and ever, in eternity, that I'm not going to know, right? So it's not like it's going to affect me. And then throughout my life, applying meaning to the things that have happened, how has that affected me negatively? In fact, it's only affected me positively, where I've only learned from those things, right? So, I think for me, it's about learning. Did you see? He just hopped. For me, it's about applying those lessons. Either way, I'm going to learn something from it. And, then people say, well, how do you know which lesson? I think many of us, when we're going through something, if we don't know the lesson, ask somebody else. What do you think the lesson is I'm supposed to be learning from this? And if you have somebody in your life, like a mentor or a parent or, a sponsor or a best friend or something like that you really trust, or a husband or a wife or a partner or whatever, and you ask them, they'll often tell you some things, I've always said that a best friend will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And so sometimes they'll tell you things that you don't want to hear, but that are the truth, that are the real lessons in that. And I think for me, that's what life is about, that's what life's all about, Charlie Brown. It's about looking at the things that happen in my life, not just as things that happen, but learning from them and growing from them as a person and trying to be a better person, I'm not a perfect person. I screw up all the time. I'm human, and I'm not using that as an excuse. I have to look at the things I've done and learn from it and want to be a better person and then put action to that. And that's how I try to live my life, and like I said in videos a while ago, to this day, I've never met a perfect person. Have you? And I don't know what that would be like. And for me, part of the whole idea that life is like a school, we never really graduate. We just kind of continue to learn a lesson, go to the next grade, learn a lesson, go to the next grade. But for me, it makes life more interesting because then the things that happen to me aren't just stuff. It's not just stuff that happens. It's okay, well, there's a learning experience from this. There's a teaching moment to myself of something that I can take away from this and I can learn, and hopefully I can grow into a better person as a result of that. So I love when she goes in here and she addresses these 4 different things, and she says, the self-defeating illusions put the power and control of our life in other people's hands. We call this codependency. And so when we have people in our lives and we're blaming those people for the misfortune that we're having or whatever, we're not taking ownership over the things that happen to us in our life. Even if that is and I'm not talking about severe abusive issues and things like that. I'm talking about some things that we've brought on ourselves. And sure, it might be easier to point the finger, and even if those people have a part in it, even if they play a part in that, right? But at the same time, us pointing the finger and blaming them, we're not learning anything from that. And I want to learn something from the things that happen in my life. So when we go and we blame that, it's well, then the things that happen in our life, we have to have somebody else for our life to mean meaning. And that's codependency, right? And then she goes in here and she says, we feel the anger, the grief, then we let go of the feelings and find peace. Within ourselves, we know our happiness isn't controlled by another person, even though we may have convinced ourselves it is. We call this acceptance. And, I've got a couple messages, but today I got one about somebody going through a breakup, and they said, do you have any advice about going through a breakup? I think that one piece right there is something that's been very hard for me in relationships in the past, but when I understood it, it was easier for me to move on. And it was something that in my relationship, before we got into marriage counseling, I had to really understand, and that was, I'm going to be just okay alone. If I don't have anybody else, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be fine. And in my past relationships, when we went through breakups, it was I just couldn't imagine who I would be if I didn't have that person in my life. That's not healthy. It's just not, right? And so, in my marriage now, before we got into marriage counseling, that was a question that I, was asking myself. And I was so when we went into marriage counseling, one of the things I had to realize was that I'm an independent person, I feel very blessed to have my husband in my life, and I'm very proud of our marriage, But if something happened or, he was no longer here, I would be okay. I would survive. And, and he would be the same way if, something would happen to me or, whatever. And I think that you have to kind of get to that point where you realize that, and once you let go of that, and that's acceptance, right? And acceptance is also, I think, like, you know, I talked about this on here before, but looking at things that have happened in the past, or even the near past or the way past, looking at them and not questioning the fact that they happened, but knowing that maybe they happened the way they were supposed to for us to learn something from. And if you can get behind that, you know, then for me, like, acceptance is a big part of my life of looking at things. And in my recovery text, you know, there's a passage in there about acceptance that I read on a pretty regular basis, almost daily, about, like, for me, that, you know, what are my options, you know, and acceptance is a big part of that. So when you realize, the first part is looking at, you know, that my life is not dependent on somebody else, number one. Number two, when I accept that fact and I can find some peace with the fact that it's me, you know, and that's very much like at the end of my mom's life when I talk about, you know, like when I looked at her, it's like we're born, we live, we die, and what we put in the middle of it is ours. Not somebody else's, it's ours. Maybe the things that happen to us aren't about us, if somebody, you know, put that in our lives, but how we react or how we respond to that is ours. It's all ours. And then it goes on here and it talks about the third part, was there only 3 parts? I guess there was only 3 parts, weren't there? Not 4 parts. But she goes in here and she talks about, then we decide what we need to do, what is within our power to do to take care of ourselves. That's called recovery. And that's not just recovery from addiction or anything else. That's recovery in life, you know, like recovering from being this person that was codependent before and realizing that I'm going to be okay on my own 2 feet. And the reality is this, and I say this to people all the time, you know, that like from what I've learned is you have to first like take care of yourself before you can be able to take care of somebody else. Like, you know, like I have a lot of friends in my life that just, you know, it's like kids, husband, work, and they never take any time for themselves. And then what happens is they get real burnt out, and then it's like they're like, I don't have anything else to give. And I'm like, because you're not taking care of yourself. You know, we often don't do that. Like, we have to take care of ourselves, which is why recently, you know, I've been getting up in the mornings and I've been, you know, drinking a glass of water, sitting outside. Today was beautiful. It's much cooler in Indiana today. It's like 58, 57. So it's been a really nice day. And I sat outside and I, you know, read the meditation books, and it gets me really centered. I have to do that to take care of myself in the morning, right? Because if I don't, then I'm not in really a space to be around people sometimes. And, you know, that has been really, really helpful for me. So, I don't know, figure out what it is that you want to do to take care of yourself, and then, you know, maybe even come up with kind of like a written plan of what you're going to do. Like, are you going to go walking 4 days a week? Are you going to start exercising again? Are, you know, you going to go to a movie once a week or take a bath, you know, when you get home from work at night and relax? Like, what are you going to do to take care of yourself? And I think that is essential. So, you know, we have to realize that our lives are not dependent upon others, number one. Number two, accept the fact that we are going to be okay. We are going to be okay just by ourselves. And the third part is trying to fix that in our future so that we don't continue to make our lives, you know, always about other people. Let me know what you think about all that in the comment section below. I hope you guys are having a wonderful week so far. It's almost the weekend, so that'll give us time to relax. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.